Hey guys, Tom itself here. Let's talk about Battlefield 4 Conquest. I don't play a whole lot of Conquest. When I do, I typically play alone, but between Battlefield 3 and now 4, I've noticed some things about Conquest, so I thought I'd share. First, if you're not familiar with Conquest, we need to talk about the scoring system. Teams start with 400 tickets. The first team to run out of tickets loses, and teams lose tickets each time one of their members respawns, or if the enemy team controls the majority of the flags, more than half, they'll lose tickets over time, and the more flags the enemy team controls, the faster the bleed. This is a rather interesting scoring system. I guess it's theoretically possible to win just based on the ticket bleed alone, though that actually wouldn't happen, or it's entirely possible to win just based on kills. But from what I see, the ticket bleed almost always ends up costing a team more tickets than their respawning does. Again, the default ticket count is 400, and it's fairly common to see teams lose 100 or fewer tickets to respawning, and I don't think I've ever seen 200 tickets to respawning, and typically the number of tickets a team wins by is less than the difference in the respawns between the two teams. In terms of how many tickets per minute respawning will cost a team, it varies by map. That's the biggest deciding factor, but it's typically between 5 to 10 tickets per minute, though more commonly it's around 6 to 7 for most maps. I mean, 10 is something like Op Locker. And so the total number of tickets that get lost to respawning is mostly just a factor of how long the game goes. It's not terribly surprising to see a team lose by 200 tickets, but then there only be a difference of 10 in terms of tickets that were lost to respawning. Anyway, no matter how we look at it, the ticket bleed, the control points, are the most important thing to winning games of Conquest. But the absolutely maddening thing is that most players don't seem to regard them that way. Instead, they're just places to spawn in and places to fight over. And mostly players just look to get into firefights rather than claim as many flags as possible. Now, while tactically all points may not be equal, from a scoring standpoint, they are. And so, especially as a solo player, I just try to take the flag that I'm going to encounter the least resistance at. Essentially pick up as many flags as I can while avoiding unnecessary deaths, and I'll pick off targets of opportunity when I get the chance. I'm not particularly bothered if I have to drive or even run all the way across the map in order to claim an undefended point. As long as I'm making the enemies do the same, I probably come out ahead there. So let's look at a fairly common situation. I've come back to the enemy's flag to go ahead and cap it out from behind them, but I've got an enemy here who's preventing me from capping it. From my perspective, what I want to do here is capture the point. I don't really care about the enemy a whole lot, he's going to do his thing, but what I don't want to happen is for me to die before I get a squad mate to spawn in on me, and if I get a second squad mate to spawn in on me, we'll probably take the point from him. So there's a temptation to run around to try and find that one guy, but if he has a teammate come along, it'd probably be easy to spot, so my best choice is just to hole up in a defensible position and wait. Maybe I'd feel a little bit different if I was back in my own spawn and my teammates could run over to me, but as it stands, I got all the way around here by flanking, and I don't want to lose that time spent. And the longer I sit here with the point blinking, the more likely I am to attract several of the enemies and get them to all come back away from Bravo so my teammates there can go ahead and cap B. In the end, he wanders into my sights. His teammate throws a pretty good grenade, but I have a flashbang and step out and take care of him, and then I finally get a teammate to spawn in on me, and we cap their give me point. And here we have another very similar situation on Gulmud Railway. I'm over solo capping A. I don't have teammates anywhere near me, not even at Bravo or Charlie. And I do manage to neutralize the point, but right afterwards, a couple enemies show up and start taking it back. Now at this point, I have a couple options. The first is I could just sit here and wait for them to leave. They might just turn around and come back and hunt me down. That's a possibility. I could leave, just go somewhere else to another point. Bravo isn't too far away, or even Charlie. That would be another option. If I had a squad mate spawn in on me, maybe we could go ahead and kill them and take the point from them forcibly. But the one thing, again, I don't want to do is lose my being a spawn point here. I have managed to distract one enemy. That's not so great. It's a 1-for-1 trade on doing nothing. That's not too great. But maybe if he wanders around into my sights, I'll manage to kill him and then finish taking the point. That would be okay. But if our three priorities in order are capture points, get easy kills, and avoid unnecessary deaths, then I think the best option is just to sit here and wait. But eventually I have a teammate spawn in. Unfortunately, he just kind of runs off into the street and kind of runs away towards Bravo. I can't entirely blame him. I did consider also just leaving A, going to B, and hoping there would be no enemies over there. And his kind of reckless behavior does mean that a couple enemies open up fire on him and don't kill him, and I managed to find a couple people to kill. The problem is there's still at least one guy here after I pick off two, and he knows exactly where I am, and I have to imagine that he's got friends who are coming back because I just killed two other guys. So this point is now contested. There are going to be enemies here who are going to be trying to stop me from taking this, and so, especially just solo, my best option is to run away, go to another point. While they're over there looking for me, I will be over here capturing a point. But it looks like my random squad mate who had spawned in on me earlier decided to run back to A. Yeah, I guess that's just the I want some combat mentality. I'm over here capping a point for my team, not exactly the most exciting work, but it's what needs to happen to win games of Conquest. And once again, I try to find somewhere somewhat defensible. I can at least get a bit of an eye of what's going on out there. If some guy is silly enough to wander through the street, I can go ahead and pick him off. And hopefully I won't get knifed in the back here. But otherwise, I'm just waiting for my teammate, who's dead right now, to go ahead and respawn. Hopefully he has the good sense to spawn on me. I mean, you have to think so. And you see that blinking light and your teammate, your squad mate right there. Oh, that'd be a 350 points. What a great way to start his life. And yes, there he goes. Spawn in, 350 points for him just for spawning in on me. And now most people would run on over to A and go ahead and fight over it and try and get some kills. But, well, maybe they'd grab this Jeep too. These Jeeps are great on maps like Gomad, let you get around so much faster. But no, we're not going to stick around for A. We're going to try and take the easy point. And I don't really care that it's just a little bit of a drive. I've got this fast Jeep. We're going to get there in no time. But the enemies, they might not have a Jeep, and it'll take them even longer to get all the way over here. And so in the end, it costs them more time than it'll cost me. Now, while solo capping this point is going to be kind of boring, I did have some fun driving over here. Got that sick jumps in. I actually think it makes a fair amount of sense to solo cap points like this one, where you're really rarely going to encounter any defense, and if you do, well, you've got no cover to work with, so what's the point in getting multiple people killed for it? And the fact that it is a bit of a drive means that if you had a full Jeep, you would effectively spend 3 times as much man time driving over here and to wherever else. Okay, you'd have to spend a third along on the point, but in the end, it ends up costing you more time to bring more people over here when there really isn't a reason to. So yeah, this makes sense. And now there is a tank over there. He hasn't noticed me. I may have some SRAW rockets, but I don't really want to chance it. He seems to be letting me have the point, and when he comes to take it from me, well, he won't capture it any faster than I did for being in a tank, and I'll be somewhere else doing something useful. And I'll be faster getting there because I'm in the Jeep and not a slow tank. Anyway, another example, very similar. I kill the guy who was guarding the point and start capturing it myself. I move around, kind of deal with the kill cam, and eventually I post up in a defensible position and wait to capture the point. But some guy shows up and stops me. He wanders around for a while and eventually he just decides, you know what, I'm not dealing with it, and then wanders off and lets me have the point. And now before he leaves, I could wander around, try to find him, but given how large an area the point covers and the buildings around it, it's pretty risky business moving around, and as I said before, I really don't want to lose being a spawn point for my squad mates out here. Hopefully they'll spawn in on me, and then we can start to actually do something. But while it's just me, I'm not going to be able to do a whole lot. That's the disadvantage of running solo. You can't just charge in with a squad and know that if there's only 1 or 2 guys, well, they can't take all of you out at the same time. No, I have to play this fairly cautiously and hopefully pick up some points where I can without giving up unnecessary deaths. One thing that I still don't have a great grasp on is how having a different number of points affects the gameplay. You've got maps anywhere from 3 to 5 points here on the 360, and well, there's obviously a difference between the very linear maps, like, well, I guess Blocker, for example, where each team has a gimme and then most of the fighting is over the one in the middle, versus something like Gomad where there are 5 flags and there are a couple that kind of tend towards one team or the other, but in general everything is up for grabs. But given that there are at most 12 players on a team, if everyone's spread out evenly, the most you're going to run into is 4 players at any one flag. But you'll typically see a flag with no one defending it, and so people like to bunch up around the middle flags or whatever's contested. Again, people are looking for gunfights, not so much to capture flags, and that's what wins Conquest games. There are really 3 ways teams get really rolled. First, they ignore the Conquest points. That's a simple, obvious thing. Second, they get stuck in their spawn, they can't get out, and, well, you can't do anything at that point. Third, they get down to just 1 point, and they keep going from 1 point to the next as a team, and the enemies just keep following them. And so while they're capping points at the same pace, The team that started out with only 1 point never gets more than 1 point, and that's just no fun because it feels like you can keep running and running but never get ahead. I feel like I've seen that happen many times on Scene Crossing in Battlefield 3 with the 4 points kind of in a square. Yeah, that got ugly at times. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Conquest. I find that it just encourages you to avoid firefights too much. Go take the points that aren't defended, and otherwise keep going around the map and try not to give up easy deaths and pick up easy kills. And it becomes a question of map design. Do you have enough choke points that you can force the teams into firefights? In which case you can get spawn trapped, or do you leave it open enough that they can get around behind and just keep trying to cap the points out from behind that aren't as well defended? I know a lot of people will tell me that it's just that I'm playing on 24-player servers, but as you add more players, they add more flags, and I have to think that, well, you just keep trying to get to the one that's least defended. Anyway, those are a few of my thoughts on Conquest. I hope you found it interesting, maybe even useful. I hope you found it entertaining anyway, even if the gameplay was just a little bit slow. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.